Welcome back. All right, so I watched some of the wrestling tonight, and I figured I might as well do a little bit of a review for what was on tonight's Dynamite. I haven't reviewed a WWE show in a while. Don't take that as me siding with AEW over WWE because I don't care. I don't. I enjoy good wrestling. I do enjoy what they're doing with Jey Uso. I think they could legitimately build him up to be a main event guy. I know it's in his name, but it doesn't feel like he's really main event yet, but it does feel like they're building him up to that. So, that being said, let's talk about AEW. It started with Moxley taking on Big Bill, and Moxley bleeds every match. And, he's the only one that does this, and it just ends up looking stupid. And I say that as a big John Moxley fan. I like him, but he has to stop it. Like this, you want to do that at pay-per-views and in really long, important matches, fine, but not here, right? So now the Blackpool Combat Club are faces, or they're not, because you've still got Claudio versus Eddie, and of course nobody's going to boo Eddie Kingston at this point. Danielson attacked Starks during the Big Bill versus Mox match, and John Moxley wins to retain the belt. So it was nice. They had a backstage segment too with Orange Cassidy and Hook and other guys that weren't really on the show. They highlight these guys in backstage segments, which aren't bad. Honestly, they're not bad. Orange Cassidy clearly over, and we'll see how far they can take him. Then we get Takeshita in the ring with Don Callis. There was a promo. Kota Ibushi's the next target. Callis stabs a painting with Ibushi and on it. Stabs it in the head with a screwdriver. I could do without the screwdriver thing. I know that there are wrestlers who've had weapons in the past, but hey, I could do without it. I really could. I think you could just say, you know what, we're done with the screwdriver bit for now. But anyways, so I look forward to Takeshita versus Kota Ibushi. I think that'll be a fun match. And then they had the women's match. You have one women's match per show, and this is a problem for next week. So next week we have Grand Slam on Dynamite, and there should be two women's matches. Chris Statlander should be against her newest contender, who is the former champion in Jade Cargill. But we'll talk about that in a moment. So you get Toni Storm, Hikaru Shida, Nyla Rose, and Britt Baker. Nyla's in there. You know Nyla's not going to win it, but Nyla's in there for the power. Storm, one of the best gimmicks in wrestling right now. Hikaru Shida, one of the more overlooked wrestlers in wrestling right now. And Britt Baker, who has this feud with Hikaru Shida, but not really. And I don't know where the payoff for that is going to be. Maybe on the next pay-per-view. You definitely, if you're going to build up your women's division, you need to start having more feuds and more matches. And I don't know how you do that when you've got Dynamite where we're only allowed one women's match. So the roll-up win for Toni Storm. She pins Britt Baker, who had just hit Hikaru Shida. Becomes the number one contender to face Saraya next week. What I think is funny is Hikaru Shida being mad at Britt Baker for kicking her and hitting her. It's a wrestling match. That's kind of a silly way to go about it, especially when there were no teams and you could only have one number one contender. So, I don't know. And it's not like they haven't had issues as tag partners over the last few weeks too. So it feels like they're dragging this out. The other problem I have with it is we've already seen Shida versus Baker. There's all kinds of other women in this division, but we'll see what comes out of that. Then we had an in-ring promo from Les Sex Gods, and Sammy Guevara and Chris Jericho are fighting each other next week. And Guevara, I have to beat you, Chris, and blah, 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 blah. That went on for a while. I didn't really have anything to add to that. I do think that Sammy Guevara needs to get his own identity away from the former Jericho Appreciation Society, and that includes Chris Jericho himself. So I agree with this decision to have him go out on his own. I think that's a good idea. Then MJF in what was absolutely brilliant chef's kiss. He does Steiner math. And if you didn't know the Steiner math promo, you would still be entertained by it. But knowing the Steiner math promo made it that much better. So he has 141 and 2/3% chance of winning. And so, yeah, I thought that was great. And then Taz, when they go back to ringside, says straight out of the University of Michigan regarding that math. And I was like, that's fantastic. Can we please get Scott Steiner to come out and have some kind of interaction with MJF Something. I don't care. It could just be a few seconds, but something. Just, it'd be great. Anyways, I have never called for Scott Steiner on my TV before today, ever in my entire life. And that includes when I watched WCW. Generally, when Steiner came on, I was like, I think I'll go see what else is on. So I love that bit. MJF not there, and they explained why he wasn't appearing on the show. Then we get Brian Cage versus Adam Page. A lot of guys with names that rhyme. Of course, you have Christian Cage as well. So Cage, and Page. It's eventually going to happen. The three of them are going to get together. But of course, Strickland comes out. His music plays. And so a bit of a distraction there. But doesn't matter. Brian Cage wasn't winning this one. It just didn't make any sense from a storyline perspective. So Adam Page wins with the Deadeye. I thought it was nice he did a 619 during the match. They didn't call it that. I'm like, they can't call it that, can they? So the area code move, or however they phrased it. And then, of course, Swerve yaps at him, and Page stands there and yaps back. And I was like, okay, Brian Cage is still there. Did he forget? Yep. And so Cage starts beating him up, and then the Young Bucks make the save. And I understand that it's two guys, but the Young Bucks and Brian Cage, I have a hard time with that. And I say that as a man of smaller stature myself. I don't know that the Young Bucks put together against Brian Cage would end well for the Young Bucks. But that's just me. At any rate, they make the save. I thought it was interesting. There was a lukewarm reaction from the crowd to that. The crowds really are not big fans of the Young Bucks right now. With all the CM Punk fallout and everything, I think it's going to take a while for the crowd to get behind the Bucks. They're going to have to do something different. And then they announced that Chris Statlander will fight Jade Cargill on Friday. Why? So I understand you can only have one match for Dynamite next week, but I don't understand why they're having this match unless it's to have like a double count out or something to set up a stipulation for a match at the next pay-per-view. Because Statlander can't beat Jade. And if Jade beats Chris Statlander, then they've built her up for nothing for months now. So we'll see how that goes. That should be a fun match. Not that Rampage is shown on Canadian TV. It's not. There was 1 week that it was shown on TSN, and then the next week it wasn't. The week after that it wasn't, so I just assume it's not on there anymore, which is definitely an issue for Rampage. Rampage has become the third tier show, and so putting that match as a title match on the third tier show tells me we're not going to see a title change. I would be very surprised if there's a title change out of that. And then a tag match, Nick Wayne, who's going to turn heel, with Darby Allin against Daddy Magic and Cool Hand Ange. It will be interesting to see how the former 2.0 or 2.0, how the guys who were in the JAS, the Jericho Appreciation Society, where they end up on the card and whether they end up being on Dynamite regularly or if they end up down on Rampage and then Dark, where are they going to end up, right? Because without the JAS, I know Anna Jay hasn't been seen for a while. I think she might as well just go back to Dark Order or something. Not like Dark Order's been on TV a lot either. So we'll see. But Christian Cage and Luchasaurus came out. And it's so weird. It is so weird how the music has to play. I'm old enough to remember when the music didn't have to play. Fans would pay attention to what was going on, and it made more sense for the music not to play. The wrestlers just wander out, right, to watch. So Christian Cage, my favorite thing with him is he wears the belt, even though it's Luchasaurus that has it, and talks about himself as the champ, and then keeps getting corrected, but then he goes right back and does it again. One of the best heel acts in wrestling, Christian Cage. Absolutely fantastic. Coffin drop win for Darby Allin, but clearly Nick Wayne is going to turn against Darby Allin and join up with Christian Cage. My prediction, if you wanted to go that far, is if Edge is going to go and join AEW, if that's going to be a thing, you could pair him up with Darby Allin. Absolutely you can. I think that could be kind of fun to have Nick Wayne and Christian Cage versus Darby Allin and Edge. We would all expect Edge to come in and team with Christian, but I think it's better if he goes against him. And of course, he'd be using probably his real name because Edge would be copyrighted through or trademarked by WWE. So he'd have to go by Adam Copeland, but we'd all know who he is. And then the main event was Roderick Strong versus Samoa Joe. I think this came together really well. This tournament I have had my doubts about. I've kind of looked at the 8 guys at the start and I'm like, why are they doing this? But I get it now. And Kill Switch Engage as entrance music, especially the end of Heartache, which is absolutely one of my all-time favorite songs. For Roderick Strong, it's great. The whole neck thing, I think, is being played off really, really well. Where he wears the neck brace, takes it off when he gets in the ring with Taven and Bennett. We get the submission win for Samoa Joe. And so he gets to face MJF for the title next week. That should be fun. I don't see MJF, I should say, losing against Samoa Joe. In fact, with the fallout from this match, I'm pretty much guaranteeing that, yeah, Samoa Joe's not going to be champ. But he's a really good contender for MJF. They do have the long history going back to NXT. There was a post-match angle with Adam Cole. Roderick Strong stretchered out while Taven and Bennett are yelling at him about, this is all your fault, this is all your fault. I'm thinking, he hurt Roddy's neck? What are you talking about? But I will say this, Roderick Strong, the character that they've created for this, there's obviously the humorous aspect of it, but I do think it's nice to give Roderick Strong a character that is not necessarily attached to Adam Cole. So even if it ends up with Roderick Strong and Adam Cole being together at some point, Roderick Strong, they need to build him up so that he is just as legitimate a contender as Adam Cole. So we'll see how all that works out for them, right? And then Samoa Joe came out and choked out Adam Cole. So, and then I thought to myself, they're not going to send Britt Baker out to check on him and then have her get choked out. They didn't, but there was part of me that just for a moment thought they might. One thing that they did do, this match ended with a submission win for Joe with about 6 minutes left. So you knew it wasn't over. You knew something else was coming, and then you get all the post-match shenanigans. So next week's the big event, Grand Slam. We'll see how things turn out that week, and of course, that'll set up the pay-per-view that's, I believe, on October the 1st. So it was a fun show overall. There are definitely some issues with the show, but at least they're building up Adam Page again. I think him and Swerve Strickland are going to have a great match. And MJF doing Steiner math is like -5 stars for some, but it's 5 stars for me. And I'm looking forward to next week. And so yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.